everybody. Happy fourth week of Pride Month. We are here for another episode of Quarantine with some of our friends. So my name is Mitch Lee. I use he, him pronouns. And the question of the week, let's do, if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be? And I'm going to say Albuquerque.
Okay. So my name is Amy. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I don't know. There's a lot of places. Poland, Arizona to visit my best friend, San Diego because I'm trying to get my partner to move out there with me. Anywhere.
All right. I'm Jaden. I use they, them pronouns. And honestly, I like being in Rochester. It's lame. And honestly, I just want to go to a coffee shop because they're all closed down. And I enjoy the ambiance. And I miss it. And I miss having fancy coffee drinks. So there you go.
Very valid.
I'm Ellie. I use pretty much any pronouns, but settle on they, them most days. And during all of this quarantine, I have been teaching myself Japanese. So I would love to return to Japan with an actual grasp of the language.
Right on.
That'd be awesome. Good for you. I think so many people like set goals for themselves of getting things done during quarantine. And if you're like me, you did some of your goals and others are long-term goals now. So we have gathered our friends today to talk about
like we're getting married.
village
Yeah, gathered
is a
today.
thing to speak about today. We wanted to talk specifically about the non-binary identity and non-binary people within the LGBTQ community, because this is a group that tends to get kind of glossed over and unrecognized, and that's not okay, and that's not what we're about here with our LGBTQ program. So we brought some of our non-binary pals to talk about their experiences so that we're not talking for people who we are not. So I'll start with you, Ellie. What does being non-binary mean to you?
For the most part, it just means that I was given two boxes and I was like, nah, I'm good, thanks. And where I go instead of those two boxes can change on a day-to-day basis.
Jada?
Yeah. For me, I think it's similar to Ellie's, that I don't really fit into like one category. I tend to like to play around with like my presentation. One day I'll be like wearing a dress. The next day I have like a huge collection of bow ties and ties. For me, my gender kind of moves kind of like along, kind of like on a spectrum. So how I'm feeling at like one day is not necessarily the same as how I'm gonna be feeling like the next day, or even from like time to time. So I guess for me, it's just like not being stuck in like just female or just male. It could be like somewhere in between, or it could be that, but it could also not be that.
Awesome.
So the next question we had for you was we wanted to hear from you about what some of the unique challenges you faced because of your non-binary identity might be. So Ellie, if you don't mind, we can start with you.
Yeah, so there are the obvious challenges I think that come with just like being queer in medical spaces or in professional spaces or what have you. And that I kind of expected. Like, people want you to fit their expectations. Like, it's weird. It's gender stereotypes, but it's also pronouns and presentation and things like that. But what I find more challenging is existing within queer spaces and facing a lot of discrimination, not just from like, you know, the LG sometimes B part, but also from binary trans people. That's been really difficult in not trampling over other people's experiences, but also making space for myself.
What about you, Jaden?
So like for me, because gender like for me moves kind of like on like a spectrum. Like sometimes I'll like wear like a dress and like I'll go to like say like my parents' house or something, and I might get like they just assume that my gender is negated just because I'm presenting in what my assigned like sex was like at birth. But like that doesn't negate my pronouns, or like that like doesn't negate that I would like rather be like handsome over beautiful or like things like that. I grew up in a very like stereotypical female environment. I was a pageant kid. I had long curly hair, so I get like hand-me-downs from my popular cousin, and there was this like very like I don't know, like very like focused mindset of what I think was like expected from me. And because I didn't really know any different and I didn't have the language to express that, I think that like part of the biggest challenge is that it's like there's been like more like education now, but I don't think that there's like quite enough. Like people are like, oh, like they them pronouns, that's plural. Like there's only one of you, like that doesn't make sense. Or like depending on like how I'm like presenting, it's like it doesn't negate the fact that I'm non-binary. And I think that's been like one of the biggest challenges for me.
So I would want to know then, to kind of go off my list of questions, Ellie, what you said about even feeling unsafe in queer spaces because of the stereotypes that binary trans people can hold, and then Jaden speaking about like the way that people try to challenge they them pronouns, which is something I know we've come up against many times as advocates. What are ways that you both would look to other people in the LGBTQ community to be stronger allies to their non-binary siblings? Jaden, do you want to go first this time?
Sorry, so the question is, how do I be an ally to other non-binary people? I tend to like try to have like conversations with non-binary people first, or like queer people in general, to figure out like what are they comfortable with sharing like in public, because some people don't always like want to be like, I don't know, like correcting or whatever. If they are comfortable with that, but they maybe are like, I'll be like, say, like simple like little corrections like that, and like hopefully like over time, I think can make like a huge difference. Really, I just like try to be like a good ear. I try to like listen and like be available. Yeah.
Ellie?
This is such a fun topic, particularly because I love waving my English diploma around like that means anything, and being like, let me tell you about the 20-page dissertation I wrote about language and how it evolves. So having those kinds of arguments on file for when you have the energy to like, let me explain you a thing, that this is a legitimate thing. We're not making it up. Even if we were saying something that was totally outside of what English could handle, that would be okay. But we're not. English was built for this. English was built for us, and we're not twisting it or contorting it. It just is. But another way that you could be a better ally, other than having a little backpack full of resources, is to normalize talking about pronouns and using neutral language to refer to other people all the time. So like, one, so that I'm not outing people by being like, oh, their partner, and then, well, is their partner a boy or a girl? Well, can we just say their partner all the time? But then two, when you normalize something like that, it's good practice. You're not going to slip up. If you genuinely practice and encourage other people to practice using neutral language all the time, you're not going to misgender a stranger or slip up when you're talking to your friend as frequently. I mean, obviously we all make mistakes, but I think practice is key, and normalizing these things is key.
And like, to kind of like go off of that, like when you like do slip up, don't make it all about you and make it like so they have to like be like, oh, it's okay, like to make you feel better about your mistake. Just be like, oh, them, and then just like move on. Like I'd much rather have that than for you to like make it into like a big thing and to like try to make you feel better because of like your slip up. Like it's okay to make mistakes and you'd be like, oh, sorry, and then just like move on, and I would be like, all right, thank you, and then like everything would be great.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you know what our agency does in order to try and normalize that discussion around pronouns, but if we're comfortable, all of us have our pronouns right in our signature. So when we send an email, it'll say from Amy Babiars, and in parentheses it says she, her, hers, and then it's like all my titles and everything under that. But it's just a really easy way to start that discussion, and also let the people we're serving know, oh, they understand that, there's not just she or he and nothing in between. So that's a really important thing that I think we do. And I used to be co-located, so I was contracted to work out of another agency through this agency. And I had several people approach me and they were like, what does that mean? And I was able to have that conversation, and they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And so I love that our agency does that, because it does normalize that, and then it's not just like it's not like a target on your back.
I definitely think, like, as people who do identify in binary roles, it's our obligation to start those conversations and to do the correcting, but in a informed and swift way, like both of you have said. So, Amy, do you want to do the next question?
Yeah. So, thinking back to your teenage years, what were some of the things that shaped you? Yeah, I know. That's why I laughed.
I love the faces. I love the faces. Whoever wants to start, you can raise your hand and then go for it.
Okay. So for me, as I said, I grew up as a pageant kid. I did them through 7th grade. I absolutely despised them. I hated them. I had a can of hairspray in my hair, dresses, the whole 9 yards. And really, I knew that like something was like off. I didn't really feel like I wanted to be like in them every day. But there's like nothing that I could do about it because of like the environment that I was in. I didn't feel safe to be able to like explore and play with that, and I didn't have the language. I didn't really see it in media. So I guess like I don't know if I would say like that's what like shaped me, but it just kind of like continued like that resentment towards myself. It really wasn't until I like got to Cuca and I was really able to have that like safe environment where I could have that language and that like ability to play kind of like away from everything that I had like going on at home. It kind of became like a safe space for me. So it's not like really like my teenage years, but my teenage years just kind of like continued to like build that like still that uncomfortableness and awkwardness like within myself that I didn't really know how to at that time. That wasn't until like my like early to like mid 20s that I was able to like figure that out.
My turn?
Your turn.
I feel like your answer is like nice and well thought out, and I'm just like, I feel like this has all worked quite backwards for me, where it was just normal the way I was living my life sort of outside of the box because no one had told me, like, get back in that box, because I have 4 older brothers, and so I grew up wearing their clothes as hand-me-downs, and I was a tree climbing, going to work with my dad as a plumber, like, let me help build a new house kind of kid. And it wasn't until I reached a point where people expected me to shed all of that and just overnight become a very girly girl 24/7 that I was like, can we go back to before, where I was allowed to do whatever and there were no boxes before. It was like, as soon as I was, I don't know, it's like a Jane Austen novel. As soon as I was, out in the public and ready to be betrothed or whatever, I wasn't allowed to be who I was. So it's mostly in retrospect that I see there was a lot of, I don't know, queering in like the theory version of the word. Yeah, so it's very strange that I grew up that way and then it got flipped, and it was only then that I made the conscious decision to work towards that.
I'm gonna go rogue again then and ask both of you, like, I feel that we see, and a lot of the work that all of us are doing is to break down those barriers and those stereotypes now. So when we're working with today's youth and young people in their, early 20s, who maybe, that's a totally valid point, Jaden, needed to grow up enough to get out of the house to find a space safe enough for them to explore that. That's how my story went too, in a different way. When we're working with young people and young adults and youth, what are some of the ways that we can continue to break down those gendered expectations for them in our regular interactions with youth?
Either one of you can. Yeah, Ellie, go ahead.
I don't know if this has much merit, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. I think a lot of people do some damage by thinking that they're encouraging exploration by just pushing the opposite thing onto a child or a teen or whatever, where they're like, you don't have to be a ballerina, you can be a fireman. It's like, well, why don't you let them just decide? It's not this or that. It's not one extreme femme thing or one extreme like masculine thing. Like, you have lots of options, and to explore them without any agenda other than you get to create who you are. Because I do think there are a lot of really well-meaning allies who do that, where they're like, or they'll email me too. They'll be like, hey, I bought my child, who is a boy, a baby doll. And I'm like, awesome. Why are you telling me? It's because they think it's the opposite of what they should be doing. And there is no opposite. There's just, here are all your options. Become who you're going to become. And I think that that's probably the best thing that we can do for young people.
Yeah, and I definitely think that if someone comes to you and I don't know, just validate their experiences, things that they what they want to do, how they feel, it's all valid. And just because it doesn't fit your norms or your stereotypes doesn't make it wrong or weird. That's just them, and they're awesome. And kind of what we were saying before, really trying to focus on using that neutral language across the board can be validating for someone who's oh, maybe these pronouns don't fit me, and allowing them that space to explore and to have that freedom without having that fear. My mom doesn't get it, but she's pretty accepting of me, and I didn't know that because of how that strict feminine environment that I grew up in. I didn't know that I didn't feel safe in that moment. And I think had she allowed me to be like a little bit like more like loose with that, then like maybe things would have been like different for me. So yeah, just like giving them that space to like play around and to like validate and allow them to try out different pronouns, see what works, and just like yeah, just like validating their experience and giving them that space to explore and like have the be able to have their experiences to navigate that.
I just want to like jump off of that a little bit because I so agree with you. But I want to bring the point home just a little bit more that I think it is vital that we allow people to explore without the expectation that that ends in any kind of transition or what that transition looks like. I don't know, in the past couple of years, people have been like throwing around this transgenders word and like really gatekeeping people from trying it out. And I think it's so vital that we let people try it out. And then if they decide, nope, I'm cis, that's cool. That's great. You tried and you discovered it wasn't for you. And that's, I think that their own identity in their gender that they were assigned at birth would only then just become stronger and a part of who they are because they looked into other options. I know that sounds silly, but like I think that's really important, and that's I so agree with what you were saying about providing that space.
That's actually a conversation that I have a lot, specifically with binary trans folks who are still feeling insecure in their new identities, where they're the ones who tend to throw around the concept of transtrending, and I always shut that down and we talk it through, because the fact of the matter is, and Riley agrees, that it's important for people to be able to figure out who they are, and have the freedom to do that. And none of it is a trend. None of it is something they're doing for attention. It's just an effort to better know and love yourself for who you are. And as you were given the space and understanding to do that, so should everyone. Like, I'm a big believer in we're all different, and that's great. So I 100% echo that. And also I challenge myself and I hold myself accountable to the fact that I am actually one of the worst at continuing to use gendered language, because it's become such a casual part of my daily vernacular that it's a continued thing that I have to keep working on. And so I challenge myself and call myself out on it whenever I pick up on it, because it's really something that needs to change for all of us. So my final question for both of you, and we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, is do you have a non-binary icon or someone who transcends the binary who inspires you?
That's a difficult question. We talked about it a little bit before we started, that like there are a lot of celebrities, news outlets love to be like, they just said they're non-binary, and it's not true. They just said that they don't conform to presenting a certain way or acting a certain way. So it's kind of hard to pick out a celebrity. I'm also not really one for idolizing celebrities. So I'm going to say something really cheesy about this, and it's going to be that my icon would be like me in 5 years, because I'm just going to strive to be whoever I'm going to be in 5 years. I know that that's terrible, but that's what it is.
We love that.
Yeah. Honestly, like, as like Mitch knows, like, I don't watch a lot of movies. I'm like very limited. All my pop culture came from him in college. I do think it's like great that we do have like some people coming out, like some like actors and actresses, musicians coming out as non-binary or transcending the binary, because I think it's really important though in like certain ways for people to find themselves in media and TV shows, because for like some people that's how they're like oh, like that could be like something that's going on with me, and like seeing them and having that like representation in media, I think is like super important. I just learned today that Bridgette Lindy Payne from Atypical is genderqueer, and that's super cool and nifty. But mostly it's just people in my community, honestly, that I look up to and I have those conversations with. And really, like, those are the people that are like inspirations to me, because that's what like propels me to keep like learning more. And like, because like non-binary is not like one thing, it means something different to every person. What non-binary means for one person isn't what it's going to mean to the next. There's like so many like subcategories, and everyone's experience is different. So I learned something new from each non-binary person that identifies that way that I come across, and honestly, they're all miles.
So when I post this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a list of outspoken non-binary or genderqueer celebrities or artists, musicians, poets, whatever. So I will be making a list of all those people as well, just because you're so right. The media representation is so crucial, especially because we're finally being given the chance to have this platform and to learn this language and to broaden the horizons of the people around us who haven't been exposed to it before. And I think having that representation is incredible. And I know, so for me, I found out that Bridgette Lindy Payne was non-binary because they perform as a character in the show, as a queer character in the show. And so I was like, you know what, I'm kind of curious. So I looked it up to see if Bridgette Lindy Payne was actually queer. And then I found out that yes, and also non-binary. And like, so all of their information was using the they them pronouns, and it was just so normalized, and I loved seeing that because I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't even out of the ordinary. It's just like they them pronouns. I know what that means. And I got so excited because I know there are so many people watching that show. So I think I love that we've got so much more representation and space to have those talks now. And actually, I don't know if you've seen any of our other videos, but I have a tattoo on the inside of my arm from my non-binary icon, Andrea Gibson. I went and saw them perform, and I got my favorite line out of my favorite poem written in their handwriting, and so then I got it tattooed. So I think that even starting there is so incredible. With like, it's not just a TV show trope, it's musicians and artists and chefs and firefighters and, social workers and everybody
too.
Yeah,
the whole spectrum. Yeah, go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, so I really want to add to that, because this is something I was talking about yesterday. I had no idea what I was going to wear today. I was really stressing about it. I was like, do I wear the shirt that says queer AF? Do I wear my button up buttoned all the way up with a bow tie? What do I, because my presentation changes so frequently. And I was talking to my partner about it, and I was like, on the one hand, I feel like I need to look queer for this. On the other hand, I do because I am, and I need to like take that responsibility and say, look, you can just look like me and be an administrative assistant and blah, 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 and still have that identity. That it doesn't like other us. It doesn't mean that I have to have any sort of outfit or fit any aesthetic. Like, it doesn't look one way. So it was a bit of a struggle. Like, I still within my own life struggled to say, I am enough. I am valid the way that I am. I don't have to put on a costume, which isn't to say it's a costume for other people. But if it's not how I'm feeling that day, and I decide I'm gonna dress that way because I feel like I have to, then it is a costume. So that was really big for me, and I'm glad that that came up.
Yeah, we always say, there's no one uniform that the LGBTQ community wears, and that's sort of the beauty of the LGBTQ community, is that it's such a diverse community, and there is no one right way, and it's not linear, as evidenced by both of you figuring out how life was developing for you. I mean, you both have very different experiences, but that doesn't invalidate one experience over the other, just the same way that it doesn't invalidate Mitch's experience versus mine, because we're all different people, and that doesn't change our ability to grow and develop and to learn and to be.
Mm-hmm. And two, I really like, while we're still on two of my favorite topics, which are non-binary icons and trans representation, like, I think it's really important as a trans man, someone who does identify with a binary gender, that we are not at odds with one another. My existence is not invalidated by your existence. I've never seen it as something that has that opposition, but I have come across a lot of people who are feeling so insecure that they do. And I think that Jaden and I grew up together pretty much, like in our queer identities. Like when it was the actual part of our life where we were living our lives authentically, we went through it together. And so, Jaden, honestly, you're my non-binary icon because you were so like open and in that struggle for both of us. Like it was very like a relationship where we were able to be open and honest and hear each other and go through it together. And I think that was really formative for me. And I wish that more binary trans people would really take the opportunity to build these friendships with their non-binary siblings, because we're all just trying to be authentic. We're all just doing life. And also, I'm going to say this because I haven't shut up about this all weekend, but on Friday I watched the new Netflix documentary, Disclosure. It's Laverne Cox's documentary about trans representation in the media, and it was a total knock out of the park. Like, it was so well done, and the way they talked about the importance of having people that look like us in our media, what that does to help, especially those of us who come from small rural areas, like a lot of the clients Amy and I work with do, to know and see and know it's okay to become and be, and you're going to live that happy, healthy life, and you don't have to conform to one way of being. Like, that's so crucial. So I really want to thank both of you for taking the time to be with us today and for being that representation for so many people in our area. It means a lot to me, and I'm really, really grateful.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like,
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
It's fine if you don't. We put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
I mean,
Thank you so
happy
much.
Pride.
Yeah, happy Pride.
happy Pride.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh, folks.